Episode 71, Two Birds with One Stone. Next to Dalen, Lucia spotted a woman. This was the same woman she had just met the other day. That woman caused Lucia to be stunned. Isn't that the one who stole things at the supermarket? Why was she with Dalen? The car door opened and she got into the car first, and Dalen followed her in. Dalen didn't see Lucia until the car drove away. Lucia stood by the side of the road for a long time. Only when the car left her sight did she come back to her senses. Back on the bus, Lucia remembered what the woman had said to her earlier. No one dared to offend the person who helped her. If the person helping her was Dalen, then it would all make sense. It was just that Lucia felt uncomfortable thinking about them together. Who knew where this feeling came from? Her heart was restless. After buying the coffee, she brought it back to the office. "Why is the floor so dirty? Who cleaned it?" Barbara said, appearing in the office hall. She questioned the staff sternly, looking at the floor under her feet. The staff member accompanying her was immediately frightened. I'll have someone clean it up right away. You, he said, pointing to Lucia. Go get a mop and clean up this mess. Lucia was stunned and didn't move. "I'm talking to you. Why are you in a daze? Do you still want to work here?" said the man. His tone was really arrogant. Without a word, Lucia turned around to get the mop. Barbara's voice came from behind her. "I hope that by the time I get back, you've taken care of this." Lucia looked at the mop in her hand and then looked at the cleaning agent in the cabinet. Thinking of something, she nearly burst into laughter. She then poured the cleaning agent onto the mop. Lucia mopped the floor until it was clean. Barbara was obviously looking for trouble, trying to make things difficult for her. If she didn't do anything, would that be giving in? Lucia had always been unwilling to be put at a disadvantage. The sound of high heels came from afar. Lucia perked up. When Barbara walked over, she quickly put away the mop and stood aside obediently, waiting for Barbara to pass by. Then Barbara's foot slipped on the ground that Lucia had mopped. Barbara screamed and fell to the floor. The sound of a heavy object dropping onto the ground rang out. Lucia couldn't suppress her laughter. The other workers in the office felt like laughing as well, but none of them dared to do so. They were shocked by Lucia's laughter. To dare to laugh at Mrs. Elrod so brazenly. Could it be that she was just waiting to pack up and leave? "Oh no, Mrs. Elrod, are you all right? Does it hurt?" The assistant pulled Barbara up and asked anxiously. As soon as Barbara stood up, she slid back to the ground and had to drag herself to the side before she could stand up again. How embarrassing. The dizziness in Barbara's head finally returned to normal with great difficulty. She saw Lucia laughing so hard that tears were about to fall out of her eyes. Barbara's face turned red and purple as she looked at Lucia. Lucia restrained her laughter with difficulty and asked with concern, "Mrs. Elrod, are you all right? Do you want me to take you to the hospital? How could you be so careless as to fall when walking?" Barbara was furious, but she still had to put on a show in front of the staff. She glanced at Lucia fiercely, turned around, and walked away. Lucia turned around to rewash the mop, then went to rewash the greased floor. It was going to be a skating rink. When she returned to her seat, Lucia could feel the gazes of the others. That's right, Barbara fell, and she left. If Barbara didn't fire her, did she have an even more sinister plan? Lucia wasn't worried about Barbara's retaliation, though. How could Barbara compare to her? She was Mr. Elrod's only biological daughter. "Lucia, Mrs. Elrod has asked for you to come to her office," said the assistant, who had come back into the room. Lucia stood up and followed him. There were whispers behind her back as she left. They must have thought she was in trouble. Lucia didn't have the habit of knocking on the door, so she walked right into Barbara's office. "Don't you know that you should knock on the door when you enter your superior's office?" Barbara had a stern expression. Lucia raised her eyebrows and walked back out of the room. This time, she knocked on the door. Barbara answered, and she entered the room for the second time. "Mrs. Elrod, what do you need me for?" Lucia asked. "Lucia, although we are family, you still need to know the rules of office hierarchy. I don't want to bully you. I want to teach you myself," said Barbara. "Thank you, Mrs. Elrod. You're very generous," said Lucia with sarcasm. "Tell me, what can you do if you can't even mop the floor?" How could Barbara not know that it was a prank? However, if she was going to make a fuss over this matter, Lucia would remain innocent. In the end, gathering strength was the best choice. "I'm pretty good at being an elevator operator." Lucia tried her best not to even crack a smile. "The elevator operator needs to know the engineering. Do you know that? You can't even pass the operations test, can you?" Barbara mocked. "I took a few engineering classes," Lucia said, even though it was a lie. "Really? Tell me about it," said Barbara. "Well, there's electrical engineering," started Lucia, but she wasn't sure what else to say. She didn't actually know that much about engineering. "What else?" Barbara listened patiently. There's also mechanical engineering," said Lucia, knowing that her ruse was failing. "You can continue to stay at your current position. If you really can't do it, then go and clean the toilet," Barbara said with a contorted face. Lucia stayed in the office until the end of the day. There was no news that she would be fired. She was confused. While Lucia was in the bathroom stall, she heard two of her coworkers talking. "Tell me, how is it that Lucia mocked Mrs. Elrod and didn't get fired? With Mrs. Elrod's temper, how would she tolerate her?" said one of the employees. "Forget about Mrs. Elrod, no matter who it is. No one could handle it after getting laughed at so unrestrainedly, especially while struggling," answered a worker from another desk. "Could it be that Mrs. Elrod just wants to slowly torture her?" "I think that's a possibility." "I don't know. Something still feels off. Could it be that Lucia has an even more powerful backer? If Mrs. Elrod is keeping her around for torture, then she would have started this afternoon." The worker thought about this for a while and decided, "Let's not order her around any longer, just to be safe." After the two women left the bathroom, Lucia walked out from the cubicle. She was lucky she could kill two birds with one stone. After taking care of Barbara, her coworkers no longer dared to bully her. It felt good. After work, she told Cole what happened during the day, and both of them burst out laughing. When Lucia returned to the mansion, Dalen still wasn't home. Lucia then returned to her room. She went to her closet to pick out new clothes to wear after her bath. When she looked through the beautiful clothes of various styles, her hand stopped. She didn't know when they'd been added, but there were more new clothes inside. On closer inspection, the clothes she had worn a few times were gone. Lucia didn't need to go out to buy clothes. This place was like a women's clothing store, where someone would buy clothes for her even before her old ones wore out. Episode 72, Swinging Her Concerns Away. These clothes reminded Lucia of the woman who should have been wearing them, the one she spotted being arrested outside the supermarket, the one she met at the mall, the one she saw with Dalen. The things the woman said to her came back to her. "You look like me." Jeff's words. "I knew you'd come back." The drunk man at the bar. "Obviously, I knew you from back when you used to come with Mr. Patrick to eat here." Could it be that the man did not actually remember incorrectly, but mistook Lucia for this mysterious woman instead? But if Dalen already had a woman in his life, why did he force her into marrying him instead? She thought how aloof he'd been keeping lately. Lucia had a guess that she couldn't accept. Her phone rang as she came back to her senses. She took out her phone and saw it was Dalen. There was only one reason for him to call back at this time. He wouldn't be back for dinner. However, Lucia still answered. Hello, she said. I won't be back for dinner tonight. Don't wait up for me, Dalen said. Lucia nodded. Got it. I'll be back before you go to sleep, though. It's not like we're going to sleep in the same room. You have a grudge now? Then we'll sleep together tonight. Dalen's low and magnetic voice was serious. Dalen, you're a jerk. Lucia hung up before he could answer. Dalen stared at the screen in shock. She actually dared to hang up on him and even scold him? She really needed to be put in her place. Jeff had a cigarette in his mouth and smoke lingered in his cold eyes. Do I need to give you an award? The top 10 outstanding husbands, perhaps? Dalen turned around with a cold face. Why did you come back? Is there no business in the Middle East? Oh, there's business. It's just boring and bloody. Jeff's eyes turned dim. Even women can't satisfy you? Dalen smirked. Jeff glanced at him but did not say anything. Lucia sat at the dining table, alone with the delicacies that had been brought out. After eating a few mouthfuls, Lucia raised her head and looked at Edward and then at John. She was about to stop eating. Is it not to your liking? Edward asked. Was there a woman who looked like me living here before? Lucia cut straight to the point. It stunned Edward and John. Especially John, whose face looked as if he was terrified. Although he quickly calmed his face, Lucia noticed the shift as she was carefully observing. Is it hard to say? Lucia asked. My apologies, madam. It is impossible for us to talk about Mr. Patrick's private matters, Edward said. Is it impossible to say, or are you afraid that I already know? Did you look at my face and think I was someone else? The flames in Lucia's heart started to burn. Madam, please calm down. Am I not calm? Lucia threw away her utensils and said, I'm not eating anymore. Then she stood up and left the dining room. Could Lucia keep her cool? She had always wondered why Dalen would marry a girl he couldn't get along with. So it was because of her face. She became someone else's double. How hard was it to digest this truth? She couldn't accept it. It was such a ridiculous reason for Dalen to want to imprison her for life. It was too cruel. But now that the woman is back, maybe Dalen will divorce her, right? This is a good thing. She wouldn't need to rack her brains for ways to leave Dalen. 3 months is still far off, so she can leave without a single blemish. John's voice came from behind her. Madame, are you all right? Lucia pointed at the big, sturdy tree in front of them and asked, Can we set up a swing here? You want a swing? He asked, skeptical. Can't I? Lucia countered. Yes, I'll go find someone to do it now, said John, as he turned to fulfill her request. John got someone to do it, and Edward told the servant to fasten it firmly. Lucia sat close by and watched the progress. She had thought that they'd use rope, but instead they used a metal chain. What? Did they think she was large enough to pull down the tree? Madame, you should eat some fruits while you wait. It's going to be a while. John brought food over and placed it on the table beside Lucia. Lucia glanced at John. Thinking about it, none of her problems had anything to do with them. All they did was obey Dalen's orders. How could she be upset with them? Calmly, she took the fruit and began to eat it. John let out a sigh of relief when he saw her eating. Dalen really likes that woman, right? John heaved a sigh of frustration. You don't have to answer. I'll just talk. Lucia didn't want to make things difficult for him. When the swing was finished and had been tested for safety, Lucia sat on it. You don't have to stay here, Lucia said, glancing around at all the people gathered around her. I want to be alone. Then they all left and she was alone swinging on the swing. When she was young, she loved to swing. There was a swing behind the old house. Both her mother and father used to play with her. At the time, her family wasn't as wealthy as they are now, but they were very happy. Her father was always busy because of his career. Later on, when he started his company, her mother died before she could even enjoy the fruits of his labor. Lucia felt tears fall down her face as she thought about it. She spent hours on the swing. It was as if the sadness in her heart could be blown away by the wind if she just kept swaying back and forth. Then she stood up on the seat, holding the chain with both hands, and swung her whole body. After a while, Dalen's figure appeared in front of her. His tall and straight form looked menacing under the lights of the night. The air was reserved and uninhibited. He was impossible to ignore. Lucia didn't say anything as she swayed gently with the swing. She clearly had the advantage of standing at a high place, but when Dalen looked up at her, it still felt as though he was looking down on her. I had them put up a swing here. You don't mind, do you? There was no other way to improve my mood, and it's already been completed. If you had come back early, you could have stopped me, so don't blame me, Lucia said. Dalen walked forward without saying a word. He raised his foot and stepped up onto the swing. His added weight caused even the thick branches to tremble. The swing stopped swinging. What are you doing up here? It's going to break. Lucia nervously looked up at the branches. However, when she looked up, she saw not only the branches, but Dalen's well-defined face. With Dalen's tall stature, Lucia needed to crane her neck to look at him from such a close distance. If you insist on coming up, then I'll be going down. Lucia was about to retreat as she spoke. However, Dalen wrapped an arm around her waist. This time, the two of them tightly pressed against each other. They were closer than they'd ever been. Lucia's slender figure was held so tightly that not even the wind could pass between their bodies. Episode 73, The Swing is the Problem. Why aren't you letting me get down? What if the swing breaks and we get hurt? I'm only 20 years old and there's still a lot of things that I haven't done yet, Lucia complained. What are you going to do? Dalen challenged. Lucia thought for a moment and said, I'm going to fall in love, get married to the man of my dreams, and strive to become a wholesome woman. Oh. Seems like you are already married to the man of your dreams. Being a wholesome woman, well, I can help you with that, said Dalen, his eyes darkening. Lucia's face was slightly hot. After being silent for a moment, she asked, Dalen, will you divorce me? Still thinking of getting a divorce? Do you believe that I will let you go that easily? Dalen's gaze turned cold. I'm just asking if you'd like to get a divorce. I'm not saying that I want to get a divorce. Lucia was so anxious that her heart was trembling. Nope, said Dalen. Isn't it too early in the marriage to say for certain, though? What if you change your mind? Lucia asked, thinking about the other woman. In my family, there are only widows, no divorces. Lucia stared at him quietly. These words were quite cruel. If that was the case, how would he deal with that other woman? Wasn't it because Lucia looked like that woman that Dalen married her? Lucia got off the swing and walked towards the house. Just as she was about to enter the hall, Dalen's deep and dignified voice sounded from behind her. When you go back to your room, remember what I said on the swing. Lucia staggered into the hall and almost fell down. Remember? Lucia was ashamed and angry, but she forced a smile on her face when she turned around. Are you trying to scare me? Are you serious? I never joke, Dalen answered. That's outside. There are so many bodyguards and servants in the house. How am I supposed to behave if I see you? The smile on Lucia's face could no longer hold. Don't worry. They won't dare to watch, unless they want to die. Lucia bit her pink lips with her thin teeth, unwillingness filling her eyes. Okay, now go to your room, Dalen said. Lucia turned around angrily and used all her strength to step on every step of the stairs, as if she was stomping on Dalen. Back in her room, Lucia was standing by the bedside table that she saw every day when she opened her eyes. On the swing? How would we even do that? Lucia never gave up hope of getting a divorce. The next afternoon, when she went to the company, Lucia was summoned by her father. When she entered the office, she stood there respectfully. "It sounds like you were put in your place yesterday," her father said with slight satisfaction. "It's all thanks to Barbara. She said that you have to know the hierarchy of the company." "What she said is true, but what did you do to provoke her?" His expression immediately became stern. "Are you talking about Barbara's fall? Did she complain to you?" asked Lucia. "Do you think she needed to tell me herself? You don't think that everyone in the company knows and is talking about it?" Mr. Elrod asked angrily. "You are accusing me unjustly. I was only mopping the floor. Who knew she would fall?" argued Lucia. "And you made it slippery enough to fall? You forget that you're my daughter. I know you and your schemes. You've only been at the company for a few days, and you already caused such a commotion for me." Mr. Elrod looked disappointment. "Barbara is the one looking for trouble, all right?" Lucia said. "Lucia, let me tell you, you have to suffer no matter where you work. If I tell everyone right now that you are my daughter, their attitude will flip 180 degrees. But then what would you learn? What I want is your experiential learning, which will benefit your future life. Don't do anything wrong and think that there will be someone to back you up. Even if you get married in the future, your husband will not spoil you for the rest of his life." Her dad was almost on the point of yelling. Lucia looked up with her big eyes, thinking, her husband, Dalen, would he spoil her for a lifetime? Dalen was pretty good to her now, giving her food, drinks, and flowers, but no one could guarantee a lifetime, right? "Let me tell you, don't let me worry all day. Do you hear me?" said her father. "Aren't you saying a little too much? How can you be so stubborn? I don't want you to back me up. It's not like I can't handle it," argued Lucia. That was the last straw. "Get out!" yelled Mr. Elrod. "You're the one who called me to your office," Lucia muttered as she turned to leave. Walking out of the office, her face was gloomy. Before she left work for the day, Lucia went to the electronics warehouse and rummaged through it. A worker from the electrical services department walked in and saw her rummaging through the boxes. "What are you looking for?" he asked Lucia. "Are there any hammers in here?" "Ouch! I found it," said Lucia, as a box fell onto her hand. "Why do you need it?" the worker asked. "I need it for something at home." Lucia waved her hand a few times, trying to numb the pain. "No, this belongs to the company, so you can't just take it home." The worker stepped to block her exit. "I'll borrow it and return it to you tomorrow," Lucia said, running past him. As soon as she left the company, she saw Macy walking towards her. Lucia took a step forward, and the hammer in her hands dropped to the ground. Clank! Macy, who was walking over, stopped walking. When she saw the hammer fall from Lucia's hand, her expression changed. Macy opened her mouth while trembling. She shouted, "Don't you dare hit me! I'll tell Dad!" Then she ran away in panic, as if there were wolves chasing her from behind. Lucia stared blankly at Macy, who had disappeared without a trace, then looked back at the hammer at her feet. Picking up the hammer, she felt like laughing. She put the hammer into her shoulder bag and continued home. Of course, Macy was afraid. Lucia had already hit or threatened her multiple times. In the past, all kinds of weapons were easily obtainable. If Lucia were to smash down with this hammer, Macy would be done for. Macy ran even faster. Lucia did not know that Macy was coming to the company, and she definitely hadn't specially prepared the hammer. The reason she wanted to borrow the hammer was to tear down the swing in the mansion. As long as there was no swing, she could avoid Dalen's threats. If she had tried to find a hammer at the mansion, she was afraid that she would be discovered before she could tear the swing down. She waited until dark and then went out to the yard. Lucia stood in front of the swing, looking left and right, not knowing where to start. She couldn't reach the branches. She needed a ladder. Where could she find a ladder? Was she supposed to climb the tree? Lucia looked up at the tall branches. How could she climb up? Lucia walked around the swing and decided to remove the wooden board. She decided to use the hammer to destroy the seat. Lucia was pleased with her plan and began to take the swing down. However, she underestimated the solidity of the swing. No matter how much she used the hammer to smash or pry, the seat did not move an inch. Episode 74, Arrange for Them to Meet. Is there a mistake? This shouldn't be so hard, right? How am I supposed to do that? Lucia had been fiddling with the swing for a long time, but her small hands were completely useless. She was so angry that she flung the hammer away and returned to the house. When she passed by the side hall, she saw a man sitting on the sofa inside. His back was very wide and narrow. Dalen is back? Did he see what she did? The anger that she couldn't destroy the swing just now had yet to completely dissipate, and now, seeing the main culprit, the flames in her heart began to rise again. Lucia's interest was piqued, and she decided to scare Dalen. She tiptoed towards the back of the figure until she stood directly behind him. She reached out her hand to pat Dalen's shoulder and shouted, "Hey!" However, just as the word "hey" left her mouth, her small hand was suddenly grabbed. Lucia didn't even know what had happened. With a spin, she was thrown forward. She didn't fall to the ground, but into the man's embrace. Lucia felt dizzy, but when she returned to her senses, she wanted to shout as she looked up at the face of the man and froze in place. Oh my God, why is Jeff here? Wasn't it Dalen? The blood in her body was completely frozen. She laid on Jeff's body and was stuck looking up at his face. Lucia had a feeling that everything was about to change. Was that fun? The corner of Jeff's mouth raised into a smile that wasn't really a smile. That wasn't funny at all. What in the world is wrong with you? Lucia struggled to get up from Jeff's embrace and quickly bounced away from his reach. Jeff tidied up his not messy clothes seriously with a cold expression. It made Lucia's stomach boil with anger. If Dalen found out what she did just now, he'd be furious at both of them. But this wasn't even her fault. Lucia felt chills down her spine just thinking about it. It's all Jeff's fault. If it wasn't for him, she wouldn't have thought to scare anybody. What are you doing here? This is a big misunderstanding. I thought you were Dalen, Lucia said. Misunderstanding what? Jeff asked. This was just what Lucia would expect of Dalen's friend. He was repulsive. However, compared to Jeff, Dalen was slightly better. Jeff didn't say anything as his gaze fell on Lucia's chest. It was meaningful, but it also had a hint of playfulness in it. Lucia's face turned red. What are you looking at? Whatever I like. It's a free country, Jeff responded. Lucia was so angry that the rise and fall of her chest became even more obvious as her breathing got heavier. She picked up the ashtray on the tea table and threw it towards Jeff. Jeff leaned to the side and the ashtray brushed past his face. The ashtray dropped onto the ground with a "pa" sound. It shattered into pieces. A pair of expensive black leather shoes appeared next to the broken ashtray. Lucia was shocked as she looked up at Dalen, who had a dark expression on his face. Lucia immediately ran over and pouted, "Dalen, your friend bullied me." Dalen looked at Jeff with his long and narrow eyes. Jeff didn't say anything, but the sinister grin never left his lips. "Should we forbid him from entering the mansion next time?" Lucia continued. She couldn't let herself have even the slightest bit of relationship with Jeff, or else it would be harming her. She didn't want to be ravaged by Dalen. "All right," Dalen agreed. Still, Jeff remained quiet. Lucia was secretly delighted in her heart. When she looked towards Jeff, her heart trembled. His face was really cold. Lucia turned and ran. A servant came and cleaned the floor quickly and quietly left the side hall. Dalen threw the documents on the tea table and sat down on the sofa, his long legs crossed, and his natural domineering aura growing even more powerful. Jeff picked up the documents on the tea table and flipped through them. If these people are really in the Middle East, it'll be hard for them to escape. Jeff's eyes were filled with an eerie calmness. Those who escaped have lived until now, and that is already my kindness. Find them and kill them all. Dalen's eyes flashed with the cruelty from hell. You don't want to investigate the mastermind? Jeff asked. There's no need to check. I know who it is. Dalen lit up the cigarette and took a deep drag. His thin lips slightly pursed as he sucked in a mouthful of air. His slightly narrowed black eyes had an involuble profoundness. Then he turned around and looked at Jeff. I won't keep you anymore. Didn't you invite me to stay and eat? Jeff's eyes were cold. Dalen clicked his tongue. It's not like you didn't hear what I said. I can't go back on my promise to Lucia. If I do, where will my credibility go? Fine. Jeff stood up and left. At the dining table, it was just Dalen and Lucia. Actually, Lucia regretted chasing Jeff away. Why? Because she remembered the favor Cole had asked of her earlier. One couldn't be so disloyal. This was not Lucia's style. She had always been a friend who would help whenever she could. Dalen, does Jeff have a girlfriend? Lucia leaned her head over to ask. Dalen, who was silently eating, turned around and looked at Lucia sternly. Lucia's head jerked back until her back was straight. You want to leave me for him? Dalen asked. Don't misunderstand. I'm asking for my friend. It's Cole, the one you were aiming at on the day of our wedding, Lucia reminded him, looking depressed. Dalen's expression was cold and he remained quiet, so Lucia continued. If Jeff didn't have a girlfriend, would he like someone like Cole? Let me tell you, Cole is very good, very kind, clean, frugal, a great person to date, Lucia said excitedly. There's no need to ask, just arrange for them to meet, Dalen said. Lucia was stunned. Why was Dalen being so easy about this? However, this was a good thing. She was very happy. How could Lucia know Dalen's thoughts? Dalen thought that if he found a romantic partner for Jeff, he wouldn't be so rude. When Lucia returned to her room, she called Cole and told him. Cole was quite surprised. What did you say? You must be joking, right? Lucia's expression changed. Are you kidding? Didn't you say that you wanted to be introduced? I was just joking, Cole said. Lucia's throat tightened. Was Cole crazy? I know my own league. Even if he is single, he wouldn't look twice at me. And blind dates are so awkward. Cole began to feel all sorts of awkwardness. Episode 75, The Awkward Dinner Date. Who said it's a blind date? It's just a meal. Who knows what could happen? Said Lucia, hoping to convince Cole to go. I'm just too nervous, Cole argued. Do you want to go or not? Lucia couldn't be bothered to continue chatting with him. There was no end to it. Fine, I'll go. Cole hung up the phone. On the second floor of the high-end clubhouse, the window of the room provided an unobstructed view of the street. There was an endless flow of cars and buses. Jeff looked out of the window, deep in thought. Why did you call me here for dinner? Are you worried about your conscience? Said Dalen, who leaned lazily on the back of the sofa. His face was indifferent and reserved. More or less, said Jeff. Suddenly, Jeff's eyes focused on something outside the window. On the lower level, Lucia and Cole both entered the clubhouse. When they were about to go upstairs, Cole stopped and stood still. "What's wrong?" she asked. Cole said, "You go up first. I'll, adjust my breathing." "You've been adjusting for the entire morning," complained Lucia. "Again, I'll adjust it a bit more," said Cole. "I told you earlier, Jeff is not easy to get into contact with. His whole vibe is very creepy. You can't delay this anymore, all right? Hurry up and don't dawdle." Lucia turned around and left. Cole grabbed her and asked, "Which room?" "Just look for a row of useless bodyguards standing at the door," Lucia said. Lucia entered the private room and looked around at the people inside. "My friend is going to the washroom. He'll be here soon," she said. She was about to sit down after considering the position farthest from Dalen. Before she settled on the bench, she heard Dalen's threatening voice asking, "You want to sit on my lap?" Lucia's body stiffened as she moved to the seat closest to Dalen and sat down. She lowered her eyes as her face turned red. Jeff looked on coldly. Downstairs, Cole took several deep breaths, feeling like he was digging a grave for himself. But if he didn't show up, then wouldn't that be rude? After Cole went upstairs, he saw that there were indeed 2 rows of bodyguards standing at the entrance of a private room. Now he wanted to escape even more. When he reached the door, Spencer prepared to open it for him. Cole jumped in shock and stopped his hand. Spencer turned around and looked at him coldly. "Don't open it yet. Wait a little longer." Cole quickly let go. Standing in the doorway, thinking for a moment, he asked Spencer, "How many people are in there?" "3," Spencer replied. Cole was stunned. Why did this person's voice sound so familiar? The same calm, the same piercing coldness. "The last time I called Mr. Patrick, it was you who answered, right?" Cole asked curiously. "Yes." "I knew it was you. Your voice sounded similar." Spencer rolled his eyes, turned around, and opened the door. Cole stood stiffly outside the door. What kind of person was this? Now he had to walk into the room with a calm face. "Hello, Mr. Patrick," Cole said. After greeting Dalen, Cole looked towards Jeff. "Hello." With that, he sat down beside Lucia. Lucia intentionally looked at Jeff. Jeff didn't even give Cole a glance. His expression was dark and cold. Clearly, Cole was not attractive to him. At least not at first sight. What to do? Would attraction develop over time? That seemed to be more difficult. After all, they were people from 2 different worlds. After the meal, the atmosphere was rather awkward. To be exact, Lucia and Cole were a little bit unnatural. Dalen and Jeff were quite natural. Cole stole a glance at Jeff, smiling unnaturally, then looked away. Jeff took out his cigarette indifferently and asked, "Do you 2 mind if I smoke?" Cole said, "I don't mind." Lucia shook her head. "I don't mind either." After she finished speaking, she felt a piercing gaze land on the side of her face. Needless to say, she knew whose stare this was. But what for? It can't be that Dalen isn't happy with Jeff smoking, right? Should she say he shouldn't smoke? Wasn't this a strange situation? Lucia kept her head down, pretending to be ignorant. What else could Dalen do to her in front of all these people? Lucia thought with confidence. Jeff smoked and puffed. Lucia looked at Dalen with a sharp gaze. Dalen was calm and collected, and he was very familiar with how Lucia treated him. It seems to have been done many times by nature. Jeff acted as if he didn't know what Dalen was doing. After glancing at Dalen, he did what he was supposed to do calmly. Having eaten their fill, Lucia and Cole left first. Only Dalen and Jeff were left in the room. Jeff said coldly, "You've already started to scheme against me?" "What am I scheming against you for?" Dalen's expression was calm. He took out a cigarette, put it in his mouth, and lit it. I suppose it was your woman's idea? Jeff snorted coldly. Dalen said with a serious look, Yes. After Lucia and Cole left, Lucia impatiently asked, How was it? How was what? Cole was puzzled. What did you think about Jeff? Lucia said. I only have one feeling, Cole replied. What? Asked Lucia. That he's unreachable, said Cole with a sigh. Lucia agreed. You're right. Do you still want to eat together next time? Next time? How about this? I'll help you by asking around when I get back. If Jeff had a good impression of you, then there's hope. If he doesn't take the initiative, then that means there's no chance, said Lucia. I don't like active men. He looks even better that way, said Cole. After work, Lucia found Dalen and asked, Dalen, did Jeff say anything about Cole? Dalen's tall and straight body was in front of her. He took off his coat and threw it to the butler. Then he turned and looked at her. Why are you all of a sudden obsessed with Jeff and what he thinks? Dalen's eyes were sharp. I'm not obsessed with him. I was just looking out for a friend. Lucia's heart couldn't bear Dalen's pressure. She put her face in her hands and lowered her head as she whispered. She felt that Dalen was unreasonable, but Lucia couldn't resist. Who caused Dalen to be so tyrannical that he would lose all humanity? Don't mention it next time, Dalen said harshly. With a cold face, he turned and entered the dining room. Lucia made a face at the tall figure and followed him to eat. She didn't need to go to school the next morning, so Lucia simply slept in at home, not even going to the dining room for breakfast. Lucia only got out of bed once the sun was high in the sky. Stretching her arms above her head, she headed downstairs. Episode 76. What does Dalen want? Oh, good. You're awake. I had prepared breakfast for you earlier. Do you want me to eat the food? John asked. Oh, can you please get me some coffee first? Lucia was about to head for the dining room. A servant hurriedly ran in. John, a woman said that she wanted to see Mr. Patrick. Do you want me to let her in? What woman? John glanced at Lucia, who was standing there, observing their conversation closely. The servant still hadn't said anything, but the clear voice of the woman who didn't belong to this house could be heard. John, long time no see. John looked at the person who had entered. He didn't dare to say anything else, so he paid attention to Lucia's expression. Lucia knew this woman very well. This was the third time they had met, and now they were both in Dalen's mansion. Dalen's mansion was very securely guarded. Not just anyone could walk in. How different this woman was. When Bianca saw Lucia, she was also stunned. Why are you here? She asked, as if she wasn't supposed to be here. It was her first time seeing this face that was similar to hers. The first time, Lucia had a favorable impression of her. But now, all good feelings vanished. Are you also here to look for Dalen? As Bianca asked this, she felt a little uncomfortable. What had happened in her absence? Why did Dalen have a girl that looked similar to her? That's right. I'm here to see him too. What can I do for you? Lucia asked. Then what is your relationship with Dalen? Bianca was more concerned about this than about anything else. Guess, Lucia said stubbornly. Bianca didn't want to think about things she didn't want, but her and Lucia's appearances were very similar. John, who was at the side, wanted to ease the awkwardness and said to Lucia, Mrs. Patrick, you should go have breakfast, otherwise your stomach will be starving. He had purposely called her by her title. When Bianca heard the words Mrs. Patrick, she could not believe her ears and anxiously asked John, What did you call her? Mrs. Patrick? Dalen's wife? Impossible. Dalen is not married. Bianca was on the point of yelling. Mr. Patrick is indeed married. John told her the truth. It would be better if she knew the reality of the situation. You're lying to me. If he was married, why wasn't there any news of his marriage? Bianca was no longer pretending to be calm. Her expression was contorted and ugly. Lucia looked at her and Bianca continued. No, you must be lying to me. Dalen loves me. How can he love another woman? I just left for a while. Why would he marry someone else? Bianca pointed an accusing finger at Lucia. Were you trying to seduce him with a face similar to mine? This kind of accusation made Lucia very uncomfortable. It wasn't that she didn't know about substitutes. Maybe all of Dalen's love for her was due to this other woman. Maybe it had nothing to do with her. Dalen must have missed me dearly to marry her, Bianca said, looking at Lucia with hatred. Edward walked over and was surprised to see Bianca. He glanced at Edward, silently questioning who let her in. Edward shrugged his shoulders, looking helpless. Edward said to Bianca, Mr. Patrick is not at home. If you want to find him, maybe you can look for him anywhere else. Why do I have to leave? Why isn't she the one who has to leave? Edward, John, I used to live here. I am the mistress here, Bianca said. Edward and John looked extremely uncomfortable. Then let me ask you, why did you leave him in the first place? Lucia asked, breaking the silence. Because I had something to do. Bianca's voice dropped a few decibels, but her unwavering determination remained. So you're saying, if you want to leave, you can leave whenever you like. And if you want to, you can come back just as easily without any consequences? Lucia sneered. Bianca was speechless. Edward, I'm going to eat breakfast. Before I finish, this person better be gone. Lucia then walked into the dining room. Bianca's face was filled with anger. She hadn't expected that such a young girl would be so formidable. How could she have let go of Dalen so easily? But Bianca's heart was filled with jealousy, unwillingness, and regret. Miss Bianca, please, if you have everything you need, you should find Mr. Patrick. Now we can only listen to your orders and escort you out, said John. Bianca grounded her teeth and left angrily. There was a nutritious breakfast on the table. However, Lucia had no mood to eat. Her mind was filled with what the woman had just said. Was Dalen still in love with that woman? If so, why not divorce her? Lucia couldn't decipher Dalen's intentions. It would be too outrageous to let herself think that Dalen liked Bianca. She and that woman looked alike, and that wasn't a coincidence. It couldn't be that Dalen was angry at the woman for leaving, and then he married her out of anger to take revenge, right? Lucia's heart felt sour, as if an invisible hand was squeezing her heart, which had never experienced love before. It looked like Dalen's true love was that woman who kept circling in his, and now her, mind. Moreover, from the fact that this woman came to him, she could tell that Dalen had met this woman countless times while leading Lucia on. The more Lucia thought about it, the more she felt depressed. Her emotions were getting worse. Mrs. Patrick, dinner is about to get cold. You should try to eat some, John said in a tight voice. Since Dalen already had a woman he liked, why did he marry me? Lucia seemed to be asking John, but she also seemed to be talking to herself. John was also troubled. He didn't know how to answer her. Because this was Dalen's problem. A servant was not allowed to speak carelessly. He was also afraid that he might say something wrong. After a moment of hesitation, John comforted Lucia. Mr. Patrick would naturally marry whoever he likes. You don't need to comfort me. Dalen is a heinous demon, Lucia said angrily as she stood up and left. Mrs. Patrick, you're not eating anymore? You'll be hungry. But Lucia had already returned to her room, picked up her bag, and went downstairs again, looking like she was about to leave. Mrs. Patrick, where are you going? Didn't you say that you weren't going out this morning? Edward hurriedly asked when he saw Lucia. I want to go out right now, and please don't try to stop me. Lucia left without looking back. What should we do? John panicked. Episode 77, Bianca Returns. I've already called Mr. Patrick. Edward frowned deeply. The other day, when Lucia Madam first asked about Bianca, we should have told Mr. Patrick. I didn't know it would turn out like this. Do you think Mr. Patrick will take Bianca back? John did not wish for this to happen. He rather liked Lucia. Even though he had served Bianca in the past, there was a huge difference in their personalities. Bianca was more selfish and not as simple as Lucia. This is not something we can argue about. We just need to do our job properly. Although Edward said this, he couldn't help but sigh. Lucia stomped out of the house in anger, paced back and forth right outside the mansion. She was angry, very angry. Why was this Bianca woman affecting her so much, though? She wanted to run away from anything that had any connection with Dalen, but she really didn't have anywhere to go, so she decided to go back to her dorm room because she had nowhere else to go. Since there were people in her family that she did not want to see, she did not want to go back home. In any case, when she wasn't married to Dalen, she stayed in the dorm all the time. Even if her relationship with Dalen didn't have a future, she would only be returning to the starting point. She won't lose anything. Cole was sleeping when he was awakened by a knock at his door. He was still a bit groggy when he came to the car. However, when he saw the person standing at the door, his drowsiness was gone. Why are you here? He asked. Shouldn't you say hi to me first? Lucia walked in. Cole closed the door with a stupefied expression. It's not that I'm not happy to see you, it's that I don't know why you'd be here, Cole said. Cole's roommates were gone, so they had the room to themselves. Lucia fell onto Cole's bed, her feet resting on Cole's pillow. The weather is so good. Let's go out and do something, Lucia said, looking at Cole in his pajamas with messy hair. Okay. Cole felt as if he was pulled out of a coma by Lucia. He thought Lucia was just talking about something small, but the two of them ended up at the amusement park, running from the merry-go-round to the Ferris wheel, from the pirate boat to the roller coaster, screaming in the air. When they left, their throats were sore and hoarse. The two of them were really childish. This was exactly what Lucia needed to forget about all her drama and problems. She was having a lot of fun. After the park was the zoo. All along the way were animals. The dangerous ones were kept in cages, while the less dangerous ones were allowed to wander around. When she reached the peacock instantly opened its tail feathers. The feathers on its body were truly beautiful, pure and flawless. Although I cannot compare myself to a peacock, I must still say that you are truly not as attractive as me. Lucia shook her head at the bird and sighed. The two of them were tired of walking and were resting on the flower bed next to the elephant enclosure. Lucia, is there something troubling you, really? Cole asked. No, said Lucia, fiddling with a blade of grass. You think I don't know you? Cole rolled his eyes. Lucia pulled the weeds beside her weakly. After a moment of silence, she said, Cole, I finally know why Dalen married me. Why? Cole was stunned. Because I look like some woman that Dalen liked, Lucia whispered. Cole opened his mouth and only spoke after a long while. What? Are you even listening to yourself? Yeah, it's the truth. I'm not imagining anything. Marrying Dalen is already too much to handle, said Lucia. Cole nodded, but then he thought of something and comforted Lucia. This isn't a big deal. Who hasn't wanted to marry Dalen? I didn't, said Lucia. Cole opened his mouth to reply, but then closed it again. And the woman is back, Lucia continued, frowning. Seriously? Cole was surprised. Why is she back? Does she want to snatch Dalen away from you? What are you doing back here with me? Don't take her seriously. Now Dalen belongs to you. Lucia sighed. But Dalen has seen her in private before, more than once. Is there any difference between this and a secret romance behind my back? Lucia was infuriated. How do you know? Cole asked. I saw it once with my own eyes, answered Lucia. You mean they're going to get back together while you're already married to him? What about you? But didn't you want to divorce Dalen from the beginning? So isn't it a blessing in disguise for you then? Cole cautiously asked Lucia. I asked Dalen before if he would divorce me. He said the only way I'll get out of this marriage is when he dies, said Lucia. Then what are you worried about? Cole said. What do I have to worry about? Lucia echoed angrily. If Lucia was a cat, her fur would all stand on end at this moment. Seems like you don't have to worry about Dalen being unfaithful, so maybe the first thing you should do when you return to your dorm room is celebrate, right? Cole said doubtfully. Let's not talk about him anymore. It's a disappointment. Lucia turned her face to look at the elephant, watching its trunk twirl around. Then she pointed at a bulge between the elephant's hind legs and asked, What's that? Cole looked over to her and snickered. Don't tell me you don't know what that is. Lucia looked at Cole's vulgar smile. When she looked at the elephant again, her face was stiff. Isn't it too big? A thought flashed through her mind. She suddenly thought of Dalen. It wouldn't be surprising to think of something similar. Lucia felt that it wasn't her fault. Cole interrupted her thoughts. I heard men with big feet also have a big package. That day during dinner, I noticed that Dalen's feet were very big. Could he have? Cole asked in a wretched manner. Why weren't you paying attention to Jeff instead? Lucia's face was flushed. Jeff's feet are also big. Cole had a bashful expression on his face. Lucia turned around speechlessly. She really couldn't stand to watch any longer. However, when she turned around and saw the elephant's huge rod, her mind immediately flashed back to Dalen. Lucia was embarrassed with herself. She won't be able to look at elephants the same way again. Episode 78, I'm Your Man. When the two of them left the zoo and saw that there was a boat ride, Lucia excitedly said, Let's row! You have so much energy, Cole said. Judging from Lucia's appearance, she really didn't seem to be hurt by the loss of love. Cole sat down on a rock and said, I don't think I'll go. Why? Lucia asked. I'm tired just watching you. I'm getting old. Let me rest for a bit, Cole said. You're only 2 months older than me, Lucia argued. Well, it's up to you, but I'm going. Lucia went to buy a ticket and then boarded the boat. The boat was motorized, so she didn't even have to row. Cole could have easily come. Wouldn't it be more comfortable than sitting on a rock? Lucia was wandering around the lake in a boat when she started to feel a little tired. Lucia lay down on her back. The boat rocked and she admired the blue sky. Her heart was calm for the first time in weeks. Dalen and that woman had nothing to do with her. Lucia was Lucia. She wouldn't be a substitute for someone else. Cole sat on a rock and looked at the small boat floating in the distance. He felt gleeful. While Cole was thinking about Lucia, he felt a shadow cover his head. Cole turned his head to look and a cold, noble face suddenly appeared, his sharp eyes gazing into the distance. On the boat. Cole snapped out of his daze and stood up immediately. Mr. Patrick! Is she out there? Dalen asked. His voice was cold and low. His expression was complex and unreadable. Yeah, she's out there. She said she was going to row, Cole answered. Dalen turned to Spencer and commanded, Go find a boat. Spencer, who was behind him, immediately left. Lucia lay down in the boat for a while before sitting up. She turned around and saw Dalen, who was standing on the bow of the boat and floating towards her. His tall and straight body was proud and mysterious, as if he was a god that had descended from the heavens. When Dalen's boat approached her, Lucia finally snapped out of her daze. She sat up and asked unhappily, "What are you doing here?" "Who allowed you to just go missing for the entire day?" When Dalen saw Lucia, his tensed expression finally relaxed. However, when he thought of how Lucia left without letting anyone know where she was going, his eyes darkened. "I should take you back and tie you to the bed." How dare you? You think you can just tie me up like that? I'm a human being, not your slave." Lucia could not believe Dalen's forcefulness. Even though he hadn't actually made a move yet, she was still scared out of her wits. "Oh, I'll teach you what being a slave really means," Dalen said in a domineering tone. "You are you, and I am me, and I don't want to have anything to do with you. Who the hell do you think you are?" Since the two of them were on two different boats, Lucia was sure that Dalen couldn't catch her at the moment. Dalen's face was dark. "What are you looking at? I'm telling you, I've had enough of you. Since the moment we met, you have been overbearing and rude. I will not be together with you. Go find someone else to torture. Maybe you don't even need to look anymore." Lucia screamed at him. If Dalen had less control, his anger would have been boiling the water in the lake. "I think you've had enough," he yelled back. "Oh, no. This is just the beginning." Lucia's whole body jumped up in pride. She forgot that she was not standing on a solid floor, but on a boat floating on the water. The whole boat shook and rocked violently. "Kneel down!" Dalen roared anxiously as his gaze sharpened. Kneel down? How am I supposed to kneel? I can't even squat down. Ah! The more Lucia panicked, the more the boat swayed beneath her feet. She felt a sharp pain in her ankle and fell into the water with a splash. Lucia couldn't swim. However, she had to try. All she had was the instinct to survive. Help me! Lucia cried, but when she opened her mouth, water poured into her nose and mouth. Just as her muscles started to give out, her waist was grabbed and a strong arm helped her float back on the surface of the water. The people on the distant shore were startled when they saw this. The situation had taken everyone by surprise. After Lucia fell into the water, Dalen immediately jumped into the water to save her. However, Dalen's expression was troubled as he held Lucia tightly. "Don't you know how to wear a life jacket?" Dalen cursed. Lucia held onto Dalen's shoulders, her body shaking with adrenaline. Her soul had not recovered yet, and tears streamed down her face. Dalen's body relaxed, and his voice finally became warm. "With me here, I guess you don't need to wear a life jacket." "It was because of you that I fell into the water." Lucia's eyes were red as she argued with him. "So the first thing I did was jump into the water to save you. How do you feel now?" Dalen had never been so kind to anyone in his life. "The water doesn't taste good at all." Lucia spat out 2 mouthfuls. After being carried back onto the ground, Lucia felt a little embarrassed to see Cole and the numerous bodyguards working for Dalen. She was about to struggle and demand to be put down. "Don't move." Dalen's voice was tough. He carried her all the way to the car. After Dalen put her on the seat, he immediately lifted her feet to check her ankle. Lucia's body shuddered and groaned in pain as he squeezed her injured ankle. "A sprain," Dalen concluded. Lucia looked at him pitifully. "How did you know my leg was injured?" When she came out of the water, her feet did not land on the ground. She had been carried the whole time by Dalen. She had forgotten the initial pain. "I'm your man. Of course I know." Dalen was cold and arrogant. Lucia blushed and turned her head to the side. She would rather look out of the window than at him. He was her man? Lucia didn't think so. Dalen was the madman behind her current situation. When she arrived at the hospital, the doctor examined her injured ankle. Just like Dalen said, it was just a sprained ankle. All the doctor said was to take some medicine and rest at home for a week. Lucia frowned when she heard that. Then, do you mean that I can't go out for a week? No, it's best to rest in bed, the doctor explained. Lucia's face stiffened. She immediately disliked this doctor. After the doctor left, her clothes were given back to her. With a pull of the curtain, he gave Lucia privacy to change her clothes. However, Lucia looked at Dalen, who had remained inside the curtain. Could I trouble you to go out for a while? Lucia asked. The doctor heard a request from the other side of the curtain. He had never seen such an abnormal couple before. Even though they were husband and wife, the wife didn't want them to change in front of each other. Are you talking to me? Dalen asked calmly. Is there anyone else besides you here? Lucia was furious. I need to change my clothes too. As Dalen said this, he began to undress. Then go somewhere else to change. Lucia panicked. Episode 79, Video Evidence. There's no need for that, said Dalen, as he continued stripping down. What do you mean, no need? Can't you respect my privacy? Lucia was stunned. She didn't want to change her clothes in front of Dalen. Just the thought of it made her extremely embarrassed. If it was up to me, there would be no privacy. Dalen's eyes were mischievous. He took off his clothes very quickly. Lucia immediately turned her head away. I'm not changing, Lucia gritted her teeth. Are you sure? Dalen's thin lips curled up charmingly. It wasn't cold at all, but Lucia felt a chill run down her spine. Lucia thought back to the past. Since when could she turn around in front of Dalen and be that vulnerable? Lucia didn't even need to turn her head to know how dangerous he was right now. She was soaked from head to toe, from the inside to the outside. In other words, Lucia had to take off all her clothes. All of them. Lucia tried reasoning through the situation. Would it be better if she kept her back to him? At least that way she could cover most of herself. Dalen was standing there admiring the process of Lucia changing clothes. As her clothes fell, her snow-white back was exposed. Dalen's gaze was like an invisible hand, lingering on the tender skin of her body. Seeing her bare skin made his blood flow faster and his breathing heavier. Lucia couldn't stand it anymore. Just as Lucia's hands were about to reach for the waistband of her pants, another hand reached over. Lucia froze. She didn't need to turn around to know who this hand belonged to. His face turned red like the morning glow. What are you doing? I'll do it myself, said Lucia. Don't move, Dalen said, trying to smooth out his hoarse voice. Lucia dropped her hands. Her face was as red as an apple. Lucia did not dare to underestimate this man's motivations. I'll help you, Dalen said, as he started working her pants down and over her hips. Lucia was stupefied. She felt that she must have looked quite dazed. No need. Lucia hurriedly refused and grabbed the hem of her underwear before he got carried away. Where is your change of clothes? Dalen asked, looking around for dry clothes. Lucia's body was buzzing, and she knew that she had to break away from Dalen's hot hand. But she forgot about her hurt ankle. She lost her balance and fell backwards. Ah! She yelled, as her two small hands waved in the air. Dalen put his arm around her slender waist and guided her onto the bed. Lucia trembled as her large eyes stared blankly up at him. And then he lifted a hand to her cheek. Dalen's low and hoarse voice dropped into a teasing tone. You're really clumsy today, aren't you? They stayed like that, staring at each other, until Dalen lowered his head and brushed his lips against hers. When Lucia came out of the hospital, she still couldn't believe that Dalen actually did that to her in the hospital. There were layers of bodyguards outside, so no one would be able to see them. However, this only served to show the helplessness of Lucia. at the constant mercy of Dalen and his guards. Just as she was about to get in the car, Macy rushed over. Halfway there, she was stopped by Dalen's men. Lucia saw that it was Macy. She was immediately more aware of the way Dalen had his arm draped protectively over her shoulder. However, Dalen had strong arms and refused to let go. "Dalen, I have something to show you. It concerns Lucia," shouted Macy. When Dalen heard the word Lucia, a cold glint flashed across his eyes. Lucia was also surprised that Macy had brought something related to her. What was it? But even so, Dalen's people still blocked Macy's way. Macy took out her phone and said, "There's a video of Lucia stealing things at the supermarket. Dalen, after you see it, you will know what kind of person Lucia is." Lucia's previously flushed face instantly turned pale. A video of her stealing from the supermarket was in Macy's hands? Why? All the blood in her body went cold. Dalen helped Lucia into the car, but then moved to go back toward Macy. Lucia grabbed Dalen's arm. Her nails pinched, but Lucia only felt the muscles on Dalen's arm. "Aren't you going to get in the car?" Lucia asked nervously. Her unease was not hard to see. "I'll handle Macy," said Dalen. After he finished speaking, he closed the car door. Macy had already been released. Macy stood there. Dalen walked over and commanded, "Show me." Macy immediately handed her phone over. While Dalen was watching the video with narrowed eyes, Macy thought to herself cautiously, "I'm sure Dalen will be upset with Lucia after seeing this." Episode 80, Far From Enough. No respectable man would ever want to be with a thief. What a terrible thing. Maybe Dalen will reward me for exposing Lucia for who she really is, thought Macy. "Where did you get this?" Dalen asked with an unreadable expression. "Actually, everyone in our family knows that Lucia has the habit of stealing things. That day my dad was hospitalized in a car accident, I called Lucia and went to school to find her. I saw her at the supermarket, stuffing things into her backpack. I felt that you should not have to be deceived by Lucia, so I took the video and now I'm showing it to you," Macy said in an unfriendly manner. "Are there any copies of this?" Dalen asked. "No, just this one," she answered. "I believe you," Dalen said with a cold voice. Then his eyes turned vicious. The phone in his hand was instantly crushed. He threw it on the ground and stepped on it with his black leather shoes. The phone was completely wrecked. Macy watched this scene in shock. "If this video gets out, your fate will be the same as this phone," Dalen said viciously. As Lucia sat in the car, she could only see Dalen's broad back. It covered up the interaction between him and Macy. Nothing could be heard or seen. Suddenly, Lucia saw Macy's phone fall to the ground. Dalen stepped on it mercilessly. Instantly, it shattered. After that, Macy's body went limp and fell onto the ground. She looked scared out of her wits. From this, it could be inferred that Macy had not achieved her goal. However, Dalen definitely saw that video. What must he think about her now? After dealing with Macy, Dalen got into the car. Lucia felt that the air was oppressing. Perhaps it was because of Dalen. Perhaps it was because of the obstruction in her heart. Lucia couldn't face Dalen. After they returned to the mansion, Lucia was carried out of the car by Dalen. When they entered the house, Edward and John hurried over. They were both stunned. John asked, "What's wrong with the Lucia, madam? Why is her foot wrapped in gauze?" "It's just a sprain," Dalen said. Then he carried Lucia back to her room. John nudged Spencer with his hand, trying to get more information about what happened. Edward didn't say anything. After entering the room and placing her on the bed, Lucia realized that this wasn't her room. It was Dalen's room. "Why did you bring me here?" Lucia was puzzled. "Your leg is injured. It's better if you sleep with me instead. I'd be able to take care of you then," Dalen said, without giving her any room for argument. "I don't want to stay here. It's not like I'm a cripple or something. It's just a sprain, Lucia said. Do you want me to repeat the doctor's words? Dalen approached the stunned Lucia. The light on Lucia's face was obstructed by a shadow, and her clear eyes seemed to be covered with a thin layer of film. Or, what do you think will happen if we sleep together? If this is what you're looking forward to, I won't let you down, Dalen said, brushing his lips against her forehead. Don't spout nonsense. I'm just not used to sleeping with people. I won't sleep well. Lucia's face was hot. You'll get used to it, Dalen said. Lucia didn't understand. Why was Dalen treating her exactly the same? Was Macy's video not enough for him to see everything? He didn't even ask her about it. Or could it be that Dalen himself was running away? Dalen, take me back to my room first. I have something to show you, Lucia said. No need. Dalen's eyes were slightly cold and dark. If you don't know what I'm going to show you, then why do you say there's no need? Perhaps after reading it, you will know something that will change your mind. If she didn't say it now, she was afraid she wouldn't have the courage to say it in the future. Dalen stared at her with his black eyes. Lucia's skin was white to begin with, but now it was even paler. Lucia looked down and gathered her courage. There's something wrong with my mind. I don't know when it started, maybe a long time ago. When I'm nervous, I steal. The last time my dad had a car accident, I couldn't control myself and went to the supermarket to steal something. The videos Macy showed you are real. That's what really happened. If you still don't believe me, everything I stole from the supermarket is hidden in the drawer in that room. You'll know when you see it. After she finished her long sentence and her voice stopped, only silence remained in the room. She was even more afraid to look at Dalen's expression. Was it the coldness after the surprise, or was it disgust? Even her own family hated her for stealing. What about Dalen? Just because he married her didn't mean he could accept her shortcomings. Look at me. Dalen sounded calm and collected. However, Lucia's head felt as heavy as 1,000 pounds. No matter how hard she tried, she could not lift it up. Then Dalen's hand cupped her face, and he helped her lift her gaze to his eyes. Dalen had that look that made her flustered and embarrassed, like he was seeing through her soul. There was no place to hide. Lucia wanted to hide herself, but she couldn't break away from Dalen's stare. She could only look up at the face that was as cold and proud as a god. Is that all you're trying to tell me? He asked. Is this not enough? Lucia asked in confusion. It's far from enough. Dalen's eyes were deep and unfathomable. Lucia was dazed for a moment. What do you mean, far from enough? What do you mean? Lucia thought of something and became embarrassed. Her face flushed. Are you saying you don't like me? You're trying to use this as an excuse to escape from me. I'm saying it is far from enough. Dalen swore in a possessive manner. This not only surprised Lucia, but also left her eyes wide open in disbelief. You don't mind if I steal something? This was stealing. I know you have money, but this is not something that money can solve. Why was it so serious to her, and he didn't even care? It was hard for her to even say the word steal. Episode 81, Forbidden from the Mansion. Didn't we solve it with money last time? Said Dalen in response. Lucia's mouth moved, but no sound came out. What Dalen said was the truth. But that's not right, said Lucia. But no one would dare to say I'm wrong. Dalen's voice was deep and hoarse. The connivance in his words was so clear. It seemed that even if Lucia killed someone, it wouldn't matter. You're too overbearing, Lucia pouted. Stay by my side. We can together deal with your problems. With a man like me by your side, what's there to be afraid of? Lucia blushed slightly. But was it normal to be condoned to such an extent? Lucia didn't know what the others were thinking. However, she felt very confused. You mean you're okay with it? Lucia asked with uncertainty evident in her voice. Dalen let go of her cheek and stood up straight. His dark eyes looked down at her clear eyes with a calm yet persistent look. Yes, I'm okay with it. Everyone has some weaknesses, and I want to help you out of yours. Lucia was taken aback by his words. Then her mind made an eerie connection. Not only did that woman look similar to her, she even stole things like Lucia did. The similarity was so great that it was impossible to find an excuse to separate the two of them from each other. But should I ask Dalen about it? Thought Lucia. She had to know if he was using her as a substitute. Could it be, though, that asking would change the relationship between the three of them? If I ask, will Dalen divorce me? Dalen made it clear that he would not divorce her. What exactly did Dalen think? However, no matter what Dalen thought, it was all his business. Lucia knew what she was thinking and what she believed. She would never be a substitute for others. Fortunately, she still had 3 months left. Fortunately, she hadn't lost anything, so she would be able to make it out in time. Lucia slept in the same room with Dalen at night. They shared a bed. Not taking a bath? Dalen stood beside the bed and looked at Lucia with cold eyes. Nope. Lucia continued to bury herself in the blanket. Will you sleep comfortably after being outside for an entire day and sweating all over? Asked Dalen. It's quite comfortable, argued Lucia. Dalen went over and lifted the blanket without saying a word. What are you doing? Lucia was just about to ask, but Dalen lifted her up and carried her into the bathroom. The bathtub in the bathroom was already filled with water. I'll do it myself, you... Put me down. Lucia gripped her clothes tightly, afraid that Dalen would take off her clothes. But you're injured, said Dalen. I have a sprained ankle. My hands are just perfectly fine, said Lucia. If Dalen was to bathe her, then what kind of scene would that be? Just thinking about it made her feel uncomfortable. Could she guarantee that Dalen wouldn't do anything when he bathed her? It was too shameful. I'm worried about you bathing by yourself, said Dalen. What's there to worry about? I've gotten hurt plenty of times before we met, and I've always been able to take care of myself, said Lucia. To be honest, Lucia had never been treated like this in her entire life. With me, you shouldn't have to live like that anymore, said Dalen, looking almost shy. Lucia snorted. Just sit outside the door and wait. Quickly put me down. Dalen put her down beside the bathtub. If he didn't let go of her, she would have jumped down. Lucia turned around and saw Dalen still standing there. Anxious, she asked, Aren't you going out? I'll either help you wash or I'll supervise. You choose, said Dalen. Lucia bit her pink lips as she stared at Dalen with her large eyes. To her, there was hardly a difference at all. Lucia thought for a moment and said, You can stay here, but you have to cover your eyes. Since she couldn't chase Dalen away, she could only take a step back. How can I supervise if I'm blindfolded? Dalen's eyebrows twitched. I don't care. You just have to cover your eyes. Lucia looked around and saw a scarf. She went to Dalen and covered his eyes with the scarf and went around to the back of Dalen's head to tie a knot. Bend down. I can't, Lucia asked. Dalen lowered his head to cooperate. Looking at Dalen, who couldn't look back at her, she felt proud of her idea. She even put her face close to Dalen's and made a naughty face. But she was caught off guard. As soon as she got close to Dalen, he leaned forward and kissed her. Their lips were pressed firmly against each other. A hot and powerful breath pressed against Lucia's lips. It made her breathless, and her face felt hot. After regaining her senses, she immediately pushed Dalen away and said angrily, You can see? After saying that, she tore off the scarf on Dalen's face and held it over her own eyes. She couldn't see a single thing. Then how did Dalen kiss her all of a sudden? Dalen's lips curled up as he said, I could smell your perfume. Lucia was unconvinced. She tied the scarf again over his eyes, making sure the knot was tight. Without making a face, she turned around and went to take a bath. While washing up, she paid attention to Dalen. But he behaved, and soon the shower was over. Dalen walked out of the room and returned to the study. He called Edward in shortly after. Bianca, from now on, is not allowed to enter the mansion. Dalen's expression was cold. Yes, sir, said Edward. What did Bianca say when she saw Lucia today? Dalen sat down on the seat and asked in a sharp and deep voice. Edward understood what Dalen was referring to and replied, That's right. Bianca doesn't believe that she would marry a woman that wasn't her. Her emotions were agitated for a moment. Dalen's eyes were dark, his thin lips were pursed, and the atmosphere was depressing. Mr. Patrick, actually, Lucia asked John and me about Bianca a while ago. Some things, Edward said hesitantly, trailing off. Speak, commanded Dalen. Lucia, madam, asked if there had ever been a woman like her in the castle. John and I didn't say anything, though, said Edward. Dalen's eyes turned cold as he said, You must let me know everything about Lucia from now on. Yes, sir. When Edward walked out of the study room, Dalen remained silent. Lucia asked this because she suspected the existence of such a person. Bianca's appearance now only confirmed her suspicions. Was Lucia's reaction negative because she was worried Bianca's appearance would threaten their relationship? Dalen's eyes lit up. When Dalen returned to his room, Lucia was still lying on the bed, playing with her cell phone. Episode 82, Don't Provoke Me. What time is it? Put away your phone, Dalen said to Lucia. What? It's only 8:30. What else am I supposed to do with my time then? You're injured. You need to rest, said Dalen. I only have an injured ankle. I'm okay. Lucia rolled her eyes. Lucia felt that something was wrong with the mood in the room. She lifted her head to look at Dalen's expressionless face and immediately acted pitiful. I can't sleep now. Can you let me play for another 20 minutes? She pouted. Dalen turned around to face the bed. Seeing this, Lucia felt pleased and continued to play the game. Just as she was about to start again, she felt Dalen ease her forward and sit behind her. Lucia was shocked as she was now sitting between Dalen's legs, leaning back against his chest. It stunned her. What was going on? Why do you want me to sit here? Lucia turned around and asked. Sleep after you're done with your game. Dalen's expression did not change. You're not going to sleep like this, are you? Lucia did not understand Dalen. Dalen leaned back lazily and said, There are still 18 minutes. Lucia's expression froze. She needed to hurry up and start the game. Why did Lucia want to play games? Probably because she didn't want to lie down so quickly with Dalen. It was really awkward sleeping on the same bed. Her face was burning. Her foot was too useless to try and run away. It was too risky. Dalen could not be ignored. The game was stuttering and it required a lot of effort to focus on the game. Dalen really didn't do anything. One of his legs was stretched out while the other was slightly bent. He just watched as Lucia played the game seriously, waiting for time to pass. Her hair was fine, shiny black, and soft against his chest. Her ears were small and delicate, and under the light one could see a beautiful transparent color. It's been 20 minutes. Dalen looked at the back of Lucia's head lazily. Time went by so fast? Lucia was surprised. I'll play for another 10 minutes, Lucia said. Dalen didn't answer. Another 10 minutes passed. 10 minutes have passed, Dalen reminded again. Ah! How is the time passing so quickly tonight? When this round is over, I'll sleep. Lucia hadn't finished her sentence when her cell phone was forcefully taken away. Dalen put it on the bedside table out of her reach, next to his own phone. Okay then, I'll just go to sleep. Lucia crawled out from between Dalen's legs, dodged to the side and lay down, sticking close to the edge of the bed. Then she closed her eyes. You want to sleep under the bed? Lucia opened her eyes and saw Dalen's cold expression. No, I don't want to sleep under the bed, Lucia said, confused. Then come here. Lucia glanced at the distance between her and Dalen. She moved slightly in that direction. Dalen raised his eyebrows at her, and she moved a bit more. Just as she was thinking that this distance should be sufficient, he wrapped an arm around her waist and pulled her towards him. Lucia curled herself up into a ball, not daring to move an inch, until Dalen twisted, turned off the lamp, and then settled back down beside her. Lucia's large eyes opened wide in the darkness. She'd slept in the same bed with Dalen before, but she'd never slept so close to him before. Now she could even hear the strong thumping sound of Dalen's heart under his firm muscles. There was also his burning hot body temperature. She couldn't ignore it. Lucia thought about how pitiful she was. It made her heart beat faster, making her panic. After calming down for a while, Lucia tried to break free from Dalen's embrace. However, the arm that was wrapped around her waist was like a metal chain. She couldn't break free at all. Lucia gave up helplessly. Then she yawned. After all, she had a tiring day. How could she not be tired? Lucia let her thoughts run wild for a while before she unknowingly fell asleep. She slept soundly, curled against Dalen's chest. Lucia was asleep in the morning when she felt someone touching her feet. She opened her eyes sleepily and saw Dalen applying medicine to her ankle. I will change it myself. Lucia's feet were white and beautiful in Dalen's palm. You will? Dalen raised his eyes and glanced at her. It's just a change of medicine. What's so difficult about it? Lucia asked. Dalen didn't say anything and focused on applying the medicine for her. All right, since you've already started, I won't fight with you. When Lucia saw Dalen starting to wrap the gauze around her ankles, she muttered and lay back down. After applying the medicine on Lucia's ankle, Dalen stood up, walked to the side of the bed, and sat down. Seeing Lucia's petite face blushing, he could not help but press his lower body forward to kiss her. What are you doing? I want to sleep. Lucia was just about to go back to sleep when she was shocked by Dalen coming toward her. She shrank back. Dalen saw that she was worried, so he used his big hands to calm her and stopped her from running away. No, I want to sleep. Lucia's voice was filled with panic. I'm not going to mess with you. I just wanted to tell you that I need to go to my company to take care of some matters, said Dalen. Oh. Lucia closed her eyes again, but she was still suspicious. Fortunately, after hearing Dalen say that, her tense nerves loosened up a bit. Not long after Dalen left, Jeff came to the mansion looking for him. After entering the hall, he casually asked the servant, Where's Dalen? The servant, who had just finished his work, did not notice Dalen's departure and said, He's still asleep in his room. Dalen went upstairs to find him. After Dalen left, Lucia finally relaxed her body and was prepared to fall asleep when she felt the edge of the bed sink down again. Lucia, who was still sleepy, thought it was Dalen again. She thought he was back. She thought perhaps she had slept a long time and Dalen had finished dealing with the matter. Lucia was lying with her back to him. Not long after, she felt hands on her back. Lucia, who was extremely annoyed, made a backhand gesture with her hands. It was light at first, but the hands still did not move, so she used force and dug her nails into the flesh. This was a warning. Don't provoke me again and again. The hands finally let go of her. Episode 83, Ripping. Jeff looked at the 4 nail marks on the back of his hand. His eyes were flashing with anger. He couldn't believe that he was injured by a girl. The light in his eyes turned sinister and evil. He should teach her to know her place. I'm very sleepy. Don't bother me. You're not allowed to touch me before the deadline anyway, Lucia protested softly. The hostility in Jeff's eyes disappeared. After being stunned for a moment, he analyzed the meaning behind her words. The two of them were sleeping together, but they hadn't consummated the marriage? He couldn't help but ask, How long is the deadline? You know how long it is. 3 months, Lucia continued, her voice annoyed. However, 3 seconds after she finished speaking, she felt that something was wrong and turned around abruptly. Seeing who was sitting on the edge of the bed, Lucia's face stiffened in anger. What are you doing in my room? Your room? Jeff carelessly stood up. I'm here to look for Dalen. Lucia thought about what she did just now. She looked at Jeff's hand and saw 4 bloody marks on the back of it. That was her masterpiece. I should have broken your finger just now, Jeff said sinisterly. What the fuck are you doing in my room? How dare you touch me with those filthy hands of yours? Once you saw Dalen wasn't in the room, why didn't you leave? Why are you still sitting here? Said Lucia. I thought you were Dalen, said Jeff. Lucia didn't know how to control her rage. Does her figure lying on the bed look like Dalen? No way. How blind was Jeff? Jeff ignored the anger in Lucia's eyes. He walked around the room and said, Since he's not here, I'm leaving. With that, he really left, leaving a seemingly uncomfortable Lucia mumbling with disgust. Lucia gritted her teeth in anger. Lucia was wide awake now, too scared to sleep. After staring blankly for 3 seconds, she grabbed her head and wrapped her hands in her hair. If Dalen finds out that Jeff was in this room with me, he's only going to blame me for it. He's gonna go berserk. Lucia was on the verge of tears. Why couldn't she avoid this person? Did something happen? The first day Jeff returned to the Middle East, he found the people he was looking for. The 3 of them knelt on the ground. Their bodies were trembling because behind them were their subordinates, who had unfriendly expressions on their faces. Each of them held a gun in their hands. 1 bullet could send them to hell if the gun was raised. Jeff was sitting on a chair not far away. He looked at the 3 people kneeling with a cold demeanor. I never get to enjoy my time in the Middle East, Jeff said in a voice that could take someone's life at any time. The 3 of them grew even more terrified. If you spare us, we can say who the mastermind is, one of them said. You need the name of the person who told us to kill the Patrick family, right? Said another. Yes, we can tell you. The 3 of them begged for mercy. Tell us who the mastermind is? No need. Dalen already knows who the mastermind was. As for the rest of you, you guys are nothing more than mice that can be easily killed with a pinch, Jeff said, looking down at them. The 3 of them were stunned. Then one of them stood up with a twisted expression. If you want to kill us, then just do it already. Jeff shook the wine glass in his hand. The red wine had stained the glass like blood. He then raised his jaw slightly and said, Leave him be. As soon as he finished, 2 shots were fired. The 2 kneeling fell into the pool of blood. The person who stood there and shouted that he was not afraid of death did not think that he had escaped death just because he did not die. Sweat was dripping down his forehead. You want to torture me? He asked. Why would I do that? Jeff gestured to his subordinates. Untie the ropes. The man who had been untied felt even more uneasy. What's your name? Bashir? Not only will I not kill you, I will also let you go, Jeff said. Let me go? Why? Bashir asked in confusion. Of course, I have a mission for you, said Jeff. What? Go kidnap Dalen's wife. Bashir was stunned. Aren't you and Dalen friends? Why should I kidnap his wife? He wronged me, and now he must pay. Jeff was a vengeful person. Bashir was stunned. Is it just kidnapping? What else is happening? What is the point of kidnapping if you don't have a larger plan? Just go on, commanded Jeff. Back at the mansion, Lucia was finally recovering. After a week, Lucia was able to jump and run around. She couldn't wait to return to school. Lucia had never felt that she was so fragile before. Small injuries used to be frequent with her. She never would have skipped school just because of a sprained ankle. After resting for a week, she was about to die of boredom. Cole looked at her feet as she walked onto campus and asked, "Are you really all right?" "Watch me." After Lucia finished her sentence, she jumped onto the tree trunk and hopped off again, kicking her leg high above her head. All right, don't kick anymore. You're going to tear your pants." "They're practically brand new. How can they tear?" In order to show off her tenacity, Lucia went down into the splits. Then she heard a ripping sound. Lucia's body froze. She was afraid of the silence in the air. Lucia quickly stood up and looked around, afraid of being found out for what she had done. "Have you laughed enough?" Oh my God! Is there anything more funny than this? Cole doubled over laughing, his hands on his knees. Tears streamed down his face. "Stop laughing! Take me to the bathroom and let me borrow some pants," Lucia said. Cole wiped away his tears. "Mine? They'd be way too big on you." "At least it's better than wearing torn pants." Lucia's face flushed. "Okay, let's go," said Cole, leading the way. As she walked, Lucia could feel a breeze coming from below. In the bathroom, Lucia took off her pants and put on a pair of Cole's pants. They were indeed loose and had a large waist. She took 2 steps forward and almost tripped on the long hem. She could only keep pulling the pants. "You're going to wear this the whole day?" Cole asked skeptically. "Yes, I'll buy a new pair later," Lucia said helplessly. "How on earth did you manage to rip your pants?" Cole shook his head, still laughing at how cute Lucia was. "No wonder Dalen is so obsessed with you." Episode 84, Kidnapped. Obsessed? Lucia didn't think so. She knew that Dalen took a fancy to her only because she looked like that woman. Who knew what would happen next? Maybe Dalen and that woman would have nothing to do with her after they made up. Lucia came back to her senses and realized that she was ignoring Cole. She hurriedly recovered her composure and said, "I basically eat the same stuff that you do." "That's right," Cole said, staring at Lucia's chest for a long time before asking, "Are you a little bigger?" "That wouldn't be possible. I'm not growing," answered Lucia. "But I've heard that when touched, your chest gets bigger," Cole said seriously. Lucia had heard that before, but she was pretty sure it wasn't true. But when Cole said that, she was stunned. She looked at her chest in the full-length mirror. Why did she feel that something was amiss? Could it be true? This must be an illusion. When she went to the company in the afternoon, Lucia was still thinking that she would definitely not give Dalen any chance to mess around with her. Wouldn't it be too much of an exaggeration to say that she was getting bigger and bigger? Lucia got out of the taxi and walked into the ladies' shop. She chose a pair of pants and entered the fitting room. The moment she took off her pants, the door to the fitting room was pushed open. Lucia had been in a rush, so she didn't lock the door. Lucia glared at Bianca, who had just barged in. "There's someone here. Use the next room," said Lucia. "I came here for you." Lucia stared at her unkindly. "Did you get my permission to look for me? Get out!" Lucia pushed her out and locked the door. After changing her pants, Lucia walked out of the fitting room. Bianca waited patiently outside. Lucia didn't even look at her. She walked past without acknowledging her and went to the cash register to pay. After paying the bill, she left the store. Lucia was on her guard as she stood on the side of the road. The last time she was pushed into the road by Macy, she was almost hit by a car. So when Lucia discovered that Bianca was right behind her, she slightly tilted her body to prevent herself from being pushed into the road. "When are you going to divorce Dalen?" Bianca asked. Bianca made no move to push Lucia, but the words that came out of her mouth made Lucia extremely surprised. Lucia had planned to part with Dalen within 3 months. But how could she tell the truth and give Bianca the satisfaction? Somehow, Dalen and Bianca's relationship was bringing about a new color in her. Lucia narrowed her eyes and smiled. "I will never divorce him." "Dalen doesn't love you at all. Why do you want to keep him to yourself?" Bianca asked coldly. "Well, he doesn't love you, does he? Why didn't he marry you if he loved you so much?" Lucia sneered. Dalen and I have some misunderstandings between us. I think you are a good person and not a bad woman like the others. Can't you return Dalen to me?" Bianca said. She had a pained and aggrieved expression on her face as she begged Lucia. Tears welled up in her eyes. Was it really because of the misunderstanding? Lucia thought to herself. Lucia felt bad for Bianca. It looked like Lucia had stolen someone else's man. Lucia's heart tightened to the point that it hurt. "To tell you the truth, it's not that I don't want to return Dalen to you. It's just that Dalen won't let me go. Since you two are truly in love, then you should try to get him to marry you. But I can't really help you," Lucia said. "How can you be so shameless? If you leave him, he won't fight for you back. You obviously are greedy for wealth, wanting to ride out the sham of a marriage as long as possible," Bianca yelled as Lucia turned to go. Lucia turned to look at Bianca. The palms of her hands itched. She wondered if she could slap a face that looked so similar to her own. Just as Bianca was about to be out of luck, a van sped to a stop by the side of the road. Lucia and Bianca stared at it in a daze. Then she could see nothing but darkness, and her head was covered with a gunny sack. The two women were thrown into the van. "Let me go! Who are you? You dare to kidnap us in broad daylight?" Lucia was furious. She could feel the car already starting up and driving off. Beside her, Bianca was also shouting, "Let me go! Let me go! What do you want? Let me go, I tell you. Otherwise, you'll regret it." Lucia couldn't believe that she was being kidnapped. Even though she was shouting, she was panicking in her heart. After all, she was only 20 years old. How could she not be afraid? "Yes, what do you want? Money? I'll give you money," Bianca shouted from beside Lucia. "If you make any more noise, I'll stab you to death." The strange man's voice was fierce. Lucia and Bianca fell silent. Lucia was curled up and shaking in the sack. Light dimly filtered through the thin fabric, but that was it. She tried to calm herself and figure out what was going on. Why would someone kidnap her and Bianca? She and Bianca did not want to have anything to do with each other. After about half an hour of driving, the car slowed to a stop. The two sacks were carried out of the car, and they were dragged towards a small path on the side of the road. After walking a while, there was an abandoned processing plant. After entering, the kidnapper threw the two of them on the ground. The man ripped the two sacks open and tied their wrists with rope. Then they were shoved against the wall. His actions were very rough, causing Lucia and Bianca to fall in pain. Lucia looked at the two men in front of her. When she heard their voices, she couldn't tell who they were or what they might want. A third man came in. He looked disheveled and dirty, like a fugitive. "Why did you kidnap two people?" Bashir looked back and forth at the two men. "The two of them were standing together. We didn't know which one was Dalen's wife, so we figured we'd take them together. One of them must be the right woman," the kidnapper said. Lucia's heart thumped. Were these people trying to kidnap Dalen's wife? That was her. Why were they kidnapping her, though? "Which one of you is Dalen's wife?" Bashir and his helpers had both seen the pictures, but he wasn't too sure now that he had seen them both in person. Lucia thought to herself, they still don't know which one is which? She reacted quickly and pointed at Bianca. She is Dalen's wife. Bianca, who reacted half a beat too slowly, panicked after Lucia pointed at her. She hadn't expected Lucia to sell her out so quickly. Don't listen to her. She's Dalen's wife. I'm not, Bianca explained in a flurry. She didn't want to be kidnapped by these people because of this. Who knew what they would do to the woman who really was Dalen's wife? Episode 85, You Are My Only Wife. What are you saying? Do I look like I could be Dalen's wife? Asked Lucia. I'm still studying. Would Dalen really marry a student? Lucia had always thought this way. Now that she had brought it up for the kidnappers to hear, she hoped it would be convincing. Then what is your relationship? Bashir found it hard to distinguish them. I'm Dalen's brother's friend, so I know her and know she's his wife. It doesn't really matter though, does it? Besides, you kidnapped me without money to redeem me. I'm very poor, all right? Compared to Dalen, I'm just a poor person. Lucia smiled innocently. Lucia, don't talk nonsense here. How could Dalen marry such a vile woman like you? Bianca lost her composure and cursed angrily. Exactly. How could a noble and influential person like Dalen marry me? It's not like he lacks options. Lucia shook her head and sighed. You! Bianca was so angry that she was about to explode. She had never been so angry before. One of the helpers beside Bashir whispered in Bashir's ear, When we got tied up in the car, this woman said she had the money to give us and told us to let her go. Bashir looked at Bianca. Bianca was so scared that she didn't even dare to move. Lucia wasn't sure if her words could fool them, so she felt uneasy. Just then, the phone in Lucia's pocket rang. It was the only thing that she had held onto. The rest fell to the ground when they were kidnapped. Lucia heard her cell phone ring. She hoped that it was Dalen. That way he would know that she was kidnapped and come to save her. Bashir went up and took out the cell phone from Lucia's pants pocket and looked at the caller ID. He pressed the answer button and turned on the speakerphone. Lucia's father's patient voice came from the phone. You still haven't arrived at the company? Doesn't your shift start in the afternoon? Excuse me, what is your relationship with Dalen? Bashir asked. Who are you? Where's Lucia? Her father asked after being stunned for a moment. I'm Lucia's friend. I'm playing a game with her right now. I want to know, did Dalen marry your daughter? Said Bashir. What are you talking about? Give the phone to my daughter, her father demanded. Bashir wasn't going to let Lucia speak, so he hung up immediately. Bianca was surprised. Why didn't Lucia's father know that she was married to Dalen? Isn't that strange? Lucia wasn't afraid of being exposed by her father, because he didn't even know about her marriage with Dalen. Lucia didn't know if this was a good thing or a bad thing. At the end of the day, she wanted Dalen to save her without anyone figuring out about their relationship. This gave me an idea. Perhaps the best person to ask is Dalen. Bashir laughed sinisterly. Lucia's mouth went dry. Is there a need for that? You already asked my dad about it, and the other details. Is that not enough for you to believe that this woman is Dalen's wife? Lucia asked. That doesn't count. And eventually I will have to talk to Dalen on the phone. Otherwise, how am I going to ask him for money? Bashir said greedily. Sure, ask away. Lucia thought for a while. At the beginning, she didn't want to admit that she was Dalen's wife because she hoped that these people would let her go. Now it seemed that these people were smarter than she had expected. Since they want money, why not just give it to them? If Dalen knew they were here, he would probably use the money to save them, right? But the real question disturbing Lucia was, will Dalen save her or Bianca? When Bashir called Dalen, Lucia's heart rose. After a while, Dalen's voice sounded. Hello? Bashir said, Long time no see, Mr. Patrick. Do you remember me? At the mansion, Dalen's expression froze, but his movements when he stood up looked no different from usual. Only he knew how stiff he was. What do you want? Me? Of course I want money, but before I ask for money, I want you to confirm something, said Bashir. What is it? Asked Dalen. He began pacing the room, grabbing his keys and getting ready to leave. It seems like the owner of this phone has a deep relationship with you, Bashir said. Nope, Dalen said without hesitation. Because Bashir had turned on the speakerphone, Dalen's cold and calm voice could be heard clearly by everyone. Lucia's own heart slowly sank. Then help me confirm it. Which voice belongs to your wife? Bashir brought the cell phone in front of Lucia. Say something. Lucia wanted to make a sound, but her vocal cords seemed to become numb, and she forgot how to make a sound. She cleared her throat and said, Hello, Dalen. Are you hurt? Dalen's voice was just as calm and low as usual, making it hard to tell what his reaction was. However, his words revealed his concern. No, I'm not injured, Lucia answered. That's good, Dalen said after a pause. After that, the two of them fell silent. Lucia didn't know what to say either as she stared blankly at her phone. Until Bashir spoke into the phone. Listen to the second woman's voice. Bianca directly cried into her phone. Dalen, I've been kidnapped. I'm so scared. I will save you, Dalen's voice immediately sounded. This attracted Lucia's attention. Dalen only asked her if she was hurt, while to Bianca, it was just a sentence meant to calm her heart. And it was, I will save you, not save you both. Will you come and save me? Really? Bianca cried tears of joy, a kind of lost and recovered happiness. You are my only wife. Of course I will save you, said Dalen. Bianca was so happy that she almost forgot where she was. I know, I am your only wife, and I always will be. I knew that you still loved me in your heart. Lucia listened in silence, her face expressionless. However, her heart was still sinking to an unbearably low level. Bashir pulled away the phone and said, Since I know who your wife is, things will be much easier. Now you prepare $1 billion to redeem your wife, or I'll shoot them both. You know, I have nothing now, and I can do anything. Where? Dalen asked. I'll call you again. Get the money ready until then, said Bashir. I have the money right now. Bashir's expression turned hideous. Damn rich people. Just wait for my call. Then he hung up. Dalen had made it out to the main hall when the line disconnected. He slammed down the phone and almost yelled, Spencer! Spencer had never seen Dalen lose control like this. Come with me to find out where Lucia is, Dalen said as he walked out of the hall. Mrs. Patrick, what happened?